Oh my goodness, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's the sound of Maureen getting a random act of helpfulness. We just told her the helpful SoCal Honda dealers are giving her special education class school supplies to help them with remote learning. And during the Honda Dream Garage Spring event, we can help you too with 0% APR financing on select 2020 Civic models. Click the dealer locator link to find a helpful SoCal Honda dealer near you. For well-qualified buyers on approved credit through Honda Financial Services. Maureen is a real person and was paid to be on the radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. I think the time of Bill Clinton avoiding his very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is coming to a close. When you have Bill Maher calling you out on his show and you're a high-profile Democrat, you, my friend, have some problems on the way. Now, for some reason, the legacy media has avoided how tight Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton really were. In fact, there's reports out there that Bill Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell were engaged in an illicit affair even. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell was at Bill Clinton's daughter's wedding. That's not something that just happens to anybody, right? I'm sure it was very elite company. I'm sure that the guest list was a who's who. But for them to try and distance themselves from Jeffrey Epstein when all of the evidence points to them having a very, very close relationship, folks. And I don't mean just one, every other day, call, text, something like that. I'm talking these guys were close. At least 26 times Bill Clinton was on the plane. Only 4 of those times have been accounted for by Bill Clinton or his people. What about the other 22 times? What about the flight logs that have not been released yet? If the legacy media wasn't busy fattening themselves at the table of confirmation bias and playing a tribalistic game, well, then some of these hard questions would be tossed Bill Clinton's way. But you don't see that from the legacy media. You see the legacy media avoid the fact that Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were a lot more than just weekend friends. These guys were very close, folks, all the way back to the time of Bill Clinton being the president. The fact that we don't hear more about Bill Clinton and his role with Jeffrey Epstein tells you everything you need to know about the legacy media and who they are protecting and who they are going after. But on Bill Maher's show last night, he actually called out Bill Clinton. And I think this is an outlier, folks. I think that this is big trouble for Clinton and Bill and Hillary coming down the pipe when you have somebody like Bill Maher calling you out on their obviously left-leaning show. And as much as I disagree with Bill Maher on a lot of things, I will say that A, I find his show entertaining for the most part, and B, every now and then, he plays hardball with some of these people, and I respect the way he goes about it. So when you're getting bashed by Bill Maher, and he has some serious reservations about the Clintons and their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, you can guarantee the left as a whole is freaking out about how close Jeffrey Epstein was to Bill Clinton. And you see it in the media all the time. You'll see people try to downplay it, right? All of Bill Clinton's hatchet men that come on these shows. And it's no different on Bill Maher's show. Paul Begala was the guest. He was a huge Clinton guy, been around with Bill Clinton forever, very close professionally and personally. And he was on Bill Maher's show last night. And Bill had a couple of things to say to him about Jeffrey Epstein, about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and how Bill Clinton is just basically a bad look for the left at this point. And I don't see how anyone can dispute that. I mean, I know if I was a party insider on the left, I'd be doing everything in my power to make sure that the Clintons were nowhere near anything. Just like if I was on the right, I would make sure that the Bushes stayed real clear of anything I was involved in. Because the taint on the Bushes and the Clinton family, it's not a good look or a good smell, and something that nobody should want to be associated with. But somehow, the Clintons end up being Teflon. They somehow still have a huge seat at the table. And because of the ties to Jeffrey Epstein, people like Bill Maher are starting to get a bit nervous about how this will affect the election moving forward. Our article today is from the Daily Beast. The headline, Bill Maher calls out horny Bill Clinton over creepy Jeffrey Epstein ties. Author, Marlo Stern. On Friday night, Bill Maher returned to his HBO program Real Time and, unlike any of the other late-night hosts, addressed Bill Clinton's shady ties to Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted pedophile who trafficked and abused young girls. Now, think to yourself for a moment, okay? If this wasn't Bill Clinton, and say it was somebody that the mainstream really hated, can you imagine the hit parade that would be going on with all the talk shows? This would be wall-to-wall coverage, non-stop, in your face. Bill Clinton, ex-president, on Jeffrey Epstein's island. You know, you can imagine the headlines. We see them all the time. We see the salacious headlines blasting all over the place. But somehow, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton and their close relationship doesn't get put on blast. Or some people will say, oh, what does it matter? That happened in the past. That doesn't matter. What about Trump? Well, we talk about Trump too, okay? He's also involved. But the fact of the matter is this, folks, and it's something that I don't think is getting driven home enough. Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were super tight. Not just ballroom buddies, not just friends at the bash, but these were men who were very close to each other. Very close to each other. And I think that it needs to be magnified. I think it needs to be talked about more. And I think that the legacy media needs to do their job for once. I know in your book you say you got 2016 wrong because you forgot Bill Clinton's first rule of politics, which is, make it about them, not about you. Maher told guest Paul Begala during the panel portion. But let me ask you about Bill Clinton, because this always comes up with the Democrats with every election. What do we do with the Clintons now? That's a huge circle. I mean, that's a huge question in political circles, especially on the left. The Clintons are toxic. They've been toxic, but the left has no idea on how to get rid of them. They're still too powerful within the establishment for the people on the far left. I don't even want to say far left. The more socialist wing of the party would love to get rid of the Clintons, but the Clintons are so entrenched in Democratic politics that it's going to take a whole lot to get rid of them. And his relationship with Epstein just might be that vehicle for the Democrats, the socialist wing in the party, to purge the Clintons once and for all. There are witnesses who saw him on Jeffrey Epstein's island, the host continued. Obviously, it's denied by Clinton. You shake your head like, that's impossible. Bill Clinton? A horny guy? On Sex Island? Ridiculous. Look, it's possible. And when Bill was talking to Paul Begala about this, automatically, like it was just, like he was conditioned to do it, like Pavlov's dog, the second Clinton's name came up, Paul Begala started furiously shaking his head. No, that cannot be possible. He was never on the island. Bill Clinton would never do that. And that's how all of Bill Clinton's surrogates conduct themselves. They are all knife men. They are all ready to go and do Bill Clinton's bidding in whatever manner is necessary. And people like Paul Begala are super loyal to Bill Clinton. You will never see a guy like Paul Begala turn on Bill Clinton, in my opinion. That's how tight they are. That's how deep their ties run. And you see it in the interview with Bill. If you watch this interview, if you get a chance to check it out, there's a link on the article that I'm going to post. Give that a look. And you see how Paul Begala right away starts with the head shaking and goes into denial mode. A judge recently released a trove of sealed records regarding Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's alleged co-conspirator. At least they got that right and called her co-conspirator, huh? The Daily Beast, like I've said several times throughout this whole entire ordeal, has done a fantastic job covering this Jeffrey Epstein angle. And among the documents was testimony from Virginia Roberts, who claims to have been trafficked and abused by Epstein and Maxwell. One file from 2011 sees Roberts saying that she saw Bill Clinton at Epstein's 70-acre island, Little St. James, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and that 2 young girls were accompanying Epstein on the trip. And this is a matter of record. Virginia has said this from the jump. And to be clear, Virginia has also said she did not see Bill Clinton engage in any sexual activity with anybody. And the point I'm making here is, even though that's not the case, he needs to answer for why he has lied about his whereabouts. Why didn't he just come out and say, yeah, I was on the island, I was there for a conference, or I was there for this or that or the other thing? It's the lying that's going to catch Bill Clinton up. The same way it caught up the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, it's the same trap Bill Clinton is setting for himself here. Ghislaine, Emmy, and there was 2 young girls that I could identify, Roberts said, of the party joining Epstein and Clinton. I never really knew them well anyways. It was just 2 girls from New York. This allegation was also included in the Netflix docuseries Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, wherein Roberts and an employee on Little St. James both say they witnessed Clinton on the island. Look, Steve Scully has come out and said he's been on the island. We've had other people say he was on the island. Virginia herself says he was on the island. So what more do we need, okay? What more evidence does the legacy media need to take a deep dive? If it was their political opponents, well, they'd be all over it. There'd be reporters everywhere, reporters going through every bit of their lives. But like Nancy Pelosi's daughter said when it all happened, this is going to include some of our faves. So anybody who has faves in this situation, anybody who's running interference for anybody who's been involved in this Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring is a piece of garbage in my opinion. Bill Clinton has been on that island, says Steve Scully, who managed telecommunications for Epstein on Little St. James from 95 to 2005 in the docuseries. I saw Bill Clinton sitting with Jeffrey on the living room porch. Adds Roberts, I remember having a dinner with Clinton. He was there, and I never saw him do anything improper. I wish, he would just come clean about like, yeah, I was there, so what? Who cares? I didn't see anything going on. Clinton has repeatedly denied ever visiting Little St. James, and that's where the rubber's going to meet the road here. He has been, look, we know that Bill Clinton has a problem with the truth. He's always had a problem with the truth. He's always going to have a problem with the truth. But him acting like he's never been on this island is going to come back in boomerang fashion and smash him directly in the face. This guy has been lying about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein forever, and nobody has called him out on it. Nobody. Well, it is time for a full court press. It is time for Bill Clinton to sit down and give his testimony under oath. Which brings us back to Maher, who said of Clinton, he has assets and he has things that are not quite assets. The same with Hillary. What should the Democrats do with the Clintons? It's a valid question. And we know that Bill Maher, for all of his faults, is not scared to ask these sort of questions on the show. With the Clintons, I feel like they're going to be toxic for the Democrats. And the only thing that's saving the Democrats from an all-out implosion involving Jeffrey Epstein is the fact that Trump has his own Epstein connections. If it wasn't for that, you can guarantee that the right would be using this as a cudgel to try and bonk the left right over the head. And the same goes for those on the left. They would be using this as a political hot potato if they could tie it to a bunch of Republicans. And that's the problem with the tribalism. People go out and they search their bias. They look for something that confirms their bias, that makes them feel good, and they run with it. And there is way too much of that garbage going on in the legacy media. These guys should be going hard in the paint the same way that we see the media in England going hard after Prince Andrew. Is Bill Clinton going to sit down for an interview the same way the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family did? Somehow, I highly doubt we'll ever see Bill Clinton on the hot seat in an interview getting questioned about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The legacy media in America doesn't have that kind of courage. But that does not mean that the pressure should not be kept on. Nobody thought Ghislaine Maxwell would get arrested. Nobody thought that somebody like Glenn Dubin would have to step down from his position. Nobody thought that Les Wexner would be chased out. But yet here we are. We're only in the third quarter, folks. We got a long way to go in this game. So we got to make sure we keep the pressure on. We have to make sure that we stay on top of things. And we have to make sure that the hard questions are always asked. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links in regards to this episode can be found in the description box. And to those of you who have donated to the GoFundMe, thank you very much. I'll be back later on and we'll do it all over again.
You know what goes into your morning cup of coffee. 2%, maybe half and half. You know what you put into your tank and what your clothes are made of. But do you know what goes into your electricity? California is powered by clean energy for most of the day. But at peak hours, those clean energy sources become less available. So when you use less energy from 4 to 9 p.m., you're choosing to keep it golden. Learn more at energyupgradecalifornia.org/radio.
I want to fling.
Whoa, marriage takes work.
No, I want to fling into spring at Total Wine. Tequilas and fruit-flavored vodkas, Chardonnays, Rosés, Pinots.
Wondrous selection, helpful guides, always low prices. Total Wine and more.